Of the routine thing. This is just because I'm overweight and white.
No, come on.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, we're still going.
Hey, and welcome back to the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast, the podcast for guys and girls who like right hand drive cars. I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yo.
And we are here today with episode 80. Episode 80.
Number 80.
We're really getting there, you know, like just from joking around saying we should do a podcast to, I don't know, going to Japan and literally recording live from there and
Multiple times.
Yeah, multiple times, and having, you know, a lot of different guests at this point who come from kind of all walks of life and from across the globe, really. But today we wanted to just chit chat a little bit about stolen cars.
Yeah.
Down. It's what everybody fears, right? You get this beautiful, beautiful car, right? I mean, whether it's USDM, JDM, whatever, but you get your pride and joy, right?
Yeah.
And this thing, it means everything to you. You keep it in the garage, you shine it up, you don't let your kids touch it. Right?
Yeah.
You know, and
no
then
food in it,
no
food,
nothing, nothing, dude.
Right.
That one speck of dirt on the floor mat, it's gone immediately.
Right.
Yeah. So
your old lady's kind of jealous about how you treat it.
Yes.
Like, it's like, whoa.
Why are you spending so much time with that thing? What about me, right? And so, you know, and of course, and I know many of you guys can relate, your worst nightmare is coming back out to the parking lot, having it gone, coming out to the garage, having it gone, you know, just that, like, man, that feeling, right, of just like instant despair, like I'm fucked. Like that's literally how it feels, right?
Yeah.
And so recently there has been some events in the United States of JDM cars being stolen, and we'll get into that. We also kind of have some personal stories and some stories that friends of ours gave us permission to use, just about how these things happen. And then at the end, we'll just kind of chat about our personal knowledge on how you can kind of deter people from stealing your car, hopefully.
Yeah.
But we do know that it's 2024, and the more that we get kind of like electronically progress, there's just more ways to do these things and kind of gives you easier access, right? So
yeah, and especially with these 90s cars.
yeah.
Like, if you've ever done any type of wiring work on these things, like, you probably know how simple it would be to cross a few wires and...
Yeah, almost like Nicolas Cage, right? And Gone in 60 Seconds. Yeah,
dude, exactly.
It's almost like that, you know, with these 90s cars.
Before,
like
you know, even easier probably.
Yeah, because it wasn't as much like that, right? A, technology wasn't as progressed, but B, the thefts weren't as common, so it wasn't as much of a worry. So, and we've all, I mean, let's start here. We've all heard, right? Like, back in the early 2000s, the hottest car to steal was what? I just want to see if you know.
I want to say it was a Honda Accord.
They're Hondas.
Oh,
period.
Hondas, period. Yeah.
Hondas, Acura, you know, that thing. And in the Type R, those were stolen left and right. The Acura Integra Type Rs. Those were just being lifted constantly because it was so easy, like you're saying, to steal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, in some points, it was a screwdriver in the ignition.
Right.
You know, you give it the old tap, vroom, and that's where the screwdriver key blank came from. It's actually pays homage to those guys who were stealing those Integra Type Rs, right? And that really became a thing in the early 2000s, you know, and obviously Acura, Honda, all of these manufacturers took notice and started equipping them with a lot better factory anti-theft systems.
Just an immobilizer in the key really stopped a lot of that, like, hot wiring, I guess you could say, because it had to read the chip.
Right. It was like almost like two-step authentication, right?
Right.
It wasn't just the key in there. It was the chip matching up.
Right. But like, those EG and EK Civics.
Oh, yeah.
Or, the Integras.
Yeah.
Pretty much any Integra. Dude, all day.
Yeah.
Like,
and that really ruined a lot of guys' like experience, right? Yeah. And it probably, you think about it, right? You have this, whatever, let's just say ITR. It's number 0055, right? Your pride and joy. That thing gets stolen, stripped.
Yeah.
Dude, that ruined your experience in the car culture. And can you come back from that being one of those guys who lost their pride and joy? That's hard, right? Because it's a discouragement. So if you were one of those car thieves and you're listening to this, like, maybe you gotta, I don't know, earn it back somehow. Maybe you need to give a car away.
Dude, or multiple, You got to come back tenfold, I guess. But, I mean, till then, middle finger to those guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Big time.
So, okay, we'll start here. So, since we are on the Integra Type R topic, right, because those were very hot cars, I will tell the story of a good friend of mine. He's an OG in the car scene where I'm from. He was always into Nissans. He had like a 2G Eclipse that was just, ridiculous power, like really cool guy, right? And so back in 2003, 2004, he hooked up with somebody. And we want to have him on the podcast and truly tell this story, but this story hurts him so much. He is the guy I'm talking about that the theft of his car took him out of the game totally. Like the theft of his car discouraged him and messed with his life so much that he never got back there, which is like sad because he was one of the most hardcore, loyalist import guys that I knew.
Right.
And so, okay, he orders an R33 GTR from
what year
Japan.
is this?
This was This was in 2004. So this was gray market.
04.
Yes, he's
orders
ordering
an R33. Barely 10 years old, probably.
Barely 10 years old. I can't tell you who he was working with.
Holy moly!
Yes, but that's what he was told. Right, he's getting. It was supposed to be a QM1, a white 33 GTR. So he gets the call from the broker. It's landed in port.
Yeah.
I imagine. Dude, in 2004, dude, he is probably on high.
Dude, seriously.
Shows up at the port, goes to collect the car. You show up the port, they tell you, the guy walks you to your car.
Yeah.
They walk him to this car, and he's like, no, that ain't it. And they're like, yeah, no, look, on the paperwork, this is yours. On the paperwork, it says Honda Integra Type R. And he's like, no, like, I think you guys got the paperwork mixed up. And like, is this your name? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, well, this is your car. He shows up. They didn't send over the 33 GTR. They threw a Honda Integra Type R on the boat, like a 98 spec or something, And he imagined, so at this point, like, you have a decision. I'm either going to be happy with this car or I'm going to be super depressed and try to, like, throw a fit. Now, he knew the value in the sense of, like, Integra Type Rs are still sweet.
Yeah.
And they at least did him a solid, and they sent him a Mugen-built Integra Type R.
Whoa, that kind of changes things.
Every part on it, it had every part in the Mugen catalog, including motor work done by Mugen. It had the authentic Mugen valve cover, Mugen exhaust, Mugen headers, Mugen, everything.
Yeah.
Including the stripe down the side, the Mugen graphics. Yeah.
Dude, that's sick, actually.
And the thing was, the thing revved to over 10K. Like, I had never been in a car like that, and that's his car actually got me in love with Hondas at that time because I was like, wow, this thing doesn't have a turbo. It revs to 10K, and it like it hammers, it hits VTEC, and it actually puts you back in your seat. So he embraced it. He was like, you know what? I wanted an R33 GTR. He literally had a garage full of parts for R33 GTR.
Dude.
Volks, like exhausts, like everything, turbos. He had everything ready to bolt onto this.
Wow.
Now he has to flip the script and embrace this Integra Type R.
Right.
Which
sounds like it's already built, though.
Yeah, it is. So he can't really do much to it. And so in his head, he's like, well, I'm still going to get the 33 GTR. Eventually, he kept all those parts.
Yeah.
Eventually, 20 years later, still has a bunch of the parts and passes them on to me when I get my 33 GTR because he doesn't want them sitting around because at this point, he's obviously given up. So anyways, long story short, he embraces the Integra. He brings it around, brings it to shows. Like everybody obviously loves it. It's a right-hand drive.
Yeah.
You know, it's an awesome car, and especially in 2004, it's like
back then,
it's like, whoa, what is even going on?
Yeah, people weren't even doing conversions or stuff much back then either. So it's like
so he ends up with some buddies. They're heading down to like this car event, right? And the entry to be inside of the event closes at 9 a.m. They left mad early, whatever. Buddy, and of course, an SRT4 runs out of gas on the highway. So they all have to pull over. They got to go get gas, bring it back. This puts them at the event at 9:15. The gates are closed. So he's got to park, and, and it was a big event. And so he has to park it out in the parking lot. So, whatever, right? We don't get to be in the show, no big deal. Well, somebody else had other plans for this car. And this is the craziest story of somebody stealing a car that I've heard. They pulled up with a flatbed tow truck, and they hooked onto his back tow hook, dragged the car up onto the tow truck, and bounced. They literally, within 4 to 5 minutes, and of course this is like him telling me the story almost 20 years ago, so like trying to get it as good as I can. But so they take it, it's gone, right? Like, so now this guy got screwed out of a 33.
Yeah,
he got his Mugen Integra Type R, and now it just got loaded up onto a flatbed, and they drove off.
Poof.
So I remember, like, he called and, like, dude was mad upset. And I'm like, dude, they'll find it, whatever. And I wasn't wrong. They found it.
All of it?
No. They found literally the frame. Like, and when I say the frame, I mean these guys stripped it to the point of it was anything that could be taken off this thing was off of it completely. It was found in Jamaica Plains in Boston, like down just like on a side road on blocks. The only way they could tell is because the VIN was etched into the firewall. And like, so now you can imagine, okay, this guy, like, he's
How long did it take for them to find it?
3 days.
3 days.
Yeah, 3 days.
Wow.
And so this was in 2004 or whatever, right? And so like anti-theft systems were around, of course. There were
the Viper alarms.
Yeah, they were that type of thing, but you're out in a parking lot with 1,000 other cars. A tow truck pulls up. Nobody really questions it, right? Because that's not generally how people are stealing cars.
Right.
This was like a chop shop. They knew what they were doing, So, that's just kind of like one quick story of how you can go somewhere just expecting to have a good day. You leave your right-hand drive car out in the parking lot, and boom, it's gone. And the next time you see it, it's unrecognizable.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Whew.
Yeah, I mean...
Man, I'd be at a loss for words.
Right, and so I remember he had me, and like there was a group of 6 or 7 of us. We were just scouring eBay and anywhere we could for these parts. Never could see them come out. Yeah, like, dude, that Mugen engine alone was worth... dude, this day and age would be worth $30,000. Yeah. Like, easy. Like a built 10K revving Mugen motor.
Dude, I wonder if, like, the people who stole it probably didn't even know or realize... Maybe even how special it was, or whatever it might be. I don't think so. I think they saw it was right-hand drive, and it was an Integra Type R. Right.
And, like, we don't have those around here, especially back then.
Yeah, they're probably looking for the front-end swap.
Right, or something, right? So they probably sold some of that stuff for, like, cheap money, and people...
Didn't even realize what it was.
Yeah, people had to come up, and they didn't even realize where it's coming from.
Right.
Which is, like, super sad. So... shout out to Dave. Hopefully we can get him on here to like really tell the story. And,
he's in the group, isn't he?
Yeah, he is in the group, and it's one of those things. It's super sad, and it did kind of take him out of the game. And so, how many other guys kind of got affected like that? Put their heart and soul into something, and then have it ripped away.
Yeah.
But speaking of parts and whatnot, I know you said of kind of a Japanese company that was kind of doing this type of thing, right?
Well, it was a place in the States that got caught selling, basically front cuts of cars and front ends and engine swaps and stuff like that. This happened several years ago. I think 2021. This place called J-Spec.
J-Spec.
Yeah, I believe they were down in Virginia. They had posted an EK9 front end for sale. Like a EK9 Type R front end. It had like a vented hood. It had, the fenders, the whole front end was stock. It had like a Jay's Racing tow hook, kind of, special pieces like with the hood and the tow hook. They posted it up for sale, and it started making the rounds on Facebook. And people were sharing the post like crazy and saying, like, look in the comments on this post. So people were looking in the comments, and basically, they were sharing a post from where an EK9 in Japan was stolen, reported stolen, not too long before this post was made.
Long enough for it to get shipped over.
Yeah, pretty much. And, he was like, this is my front end, from my car. This is the exact same tow hook. This is the exact same hood with the same hood pins. Like, this car was stolen. And then, like, people started digging deeper, dude, and like just going through their inventory and checking off all these cars and finding them like reported stolen in Japan. Like there was an STI, like a newer STI Impreza, like just a bunch of things. And dude, they ended up getting dragged.
They should.
Yeah, dude, I could not fathom how I would feel if like, you're scrolling on Facebook, right? You're looking for parts. You just had your car stolen. Mm-hmm. Whatever. You're looking for a new car. Whatever the case might be. You're just scrolling through.
Or somebody sends it to you.
Or someone sends it to you, right?
You get this like notification. You're like, oh, what did he send to me?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. It's the front end of my car and it's in America?
Right.
Damn.
And like, there's no going back from that. Like that car's never coming back.
Right, yeah. You now can chalk that up as a full loss.
Absolutely. Like 110%, dude. And like
that is so lame when people like take something great, right?
Yeah.
Like the importation of parts and whatnot, and they use it for like heinous like reasons, right? Like to make money off something that you didn't pay for. Like that's super lame.
And I think it's probably been a common thing since back in the day, dude, when all those before these cars were legal, all those front clips and front cuts and engine swaps.
Because you always wonder, like, damn, how do they have so many front clips? Like, why is there so many rear end accidents in Japan?
Yeah,
you're
stuff
like,
like
what
that.
Like, why would they be, and now that you go and think about it, you're like, damn, like how many of these cars were stolen?
Yeah.
Or even if they weren't stolen, but literally just cut up because that's the only way that money could be made off them at the time.
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of sad to think.
Like,
dude.
How many Civic Type Rs were cut, the front end was cut off just to send over here when it was a perfectly fine car that could have been imported now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It sucks, man. It's
that
like...
does suck.
I remember the first RB20 swap I ever bought, it was back in like 08, 09, 08, I believe. And I remember when it came into my buddy's shop, like I was like literally sitting in the front clip and everything was still there.
You're like, what the hell?
Yeah. And like, he was like, yeah, guy just picked it up in Japan. He said he drove the car to the shop to have it cut up, to ship, to ship the front clip over, to ship the engine and everything.
You like drive it over.
Yeah. He was like, dude, it was a ripper. Yeah. He was like, yeah, this is a very good running engine. Chop the front end off this car. Let's get it out. Like, so, R32 GTST back in the day. Like,
I mean,
who knows
was
how
like
much?
Nothing to them.
Right.
Like,
I think that whole front clip to that R32 was like $1,600. Like, landed stateside, like
that's crazy.
at the importer. Right. So like, what was the whole car worth? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure over there. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of crazy. And so, on the topic of like Japan and thefts there, so I talked to our buddy Trevor, just got kind of some insight on like, how does it happen over there? Is it a lot, and whatnot? And when we were there in Osaka, I'm sure you remember, he had at one point, because I'm not gonna lie, right? Like I'm a dipshit. All right, I am. Like, hey,
we all are in a foreign country.
If you're listening to this, I'm a dipshit, and so I leave my keys in my car like all the time. Like
Should you be saying this right now?
Like, yeah. So I used to leave my keys in my car all the time, right? Like, and so I get to Japan and. Honestly, I'm a creature of habit. I just leave my keys
Everyone's
in my car.
so friendly.
Yeah. And so I'm not worried about nothing. And so I think we walked back over to my car, and I'm showing Trevor my car, and he notices the keys in the ignition. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, what do you mean? And I explained to him, like, "Hey, I'm from Maine. Like, I leave my keys in my car. Like, it don't matter. Like," and that's just like ignorance on my behalf. But regardless, he's like, "Yeah, no, you can't do that. You can't do that." Like, I'm like, "But dude, this is Japan." He's like, "Yeah, but not everyone here is Japanese."
Yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, and that's an R34 GTR."
Yeah, he's like, and I can't remember the exact words, but it was basically like, the Sri Lankans will have that in a container before you can even realize it's gone. And so Aaron and I are like, Sri Lankans,
right?
What the heck? What are you even talking about? And so he just kind of said like that. They will come over and they'll scout cars, and then they steal them, load them up, and get them out of there so quickly that the Japanese police can't even really like follow the trail because it's already gone.
Right.
And so I asked him, and he said. I was like, "Hey, what's up with the Sri Lankans?" And he's like, he's like, the exact examples, I can only really give you one right now. And he said, there's a guy with a Bathurst RX-7, and it was stolen right outside the guy's apartment. And the guy heard it start up.
Oh, I bet he did.
Yeah, he heard it start up. And so he's on like the 4th or 5th story, hanging over his balcony, like yelling, like trying to get people's attention as the dudes are stealing his car. And the guy was recording them stealing his car.
Yeah.
And it ended up all over the news, and they were identified as Sri Lankans. And then they had to ditch the car because when they were taking it to port, they were seeing their video of them taking it all over the news, and they had to ditch it.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, so he said that he's never had anything get stolen from him, but he also lives out in the countryside and has like a newer car. He did have a 34 and all that, but he said, that seems to be a trend right now, is the Sri Lankans are taking them, exporting them, and then, you kind of don't see them again to wherever they go. I don't know. Africa.
Right. I've heard a lot of
they're not sending them to the U.S.
No,
it's too
not
high
always.
profile.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
like,
not always to the U.S.
You send it over to Africa or something like that. That's like maybe a little less tracked, and that type of thing's a little less plentiful. You can definitely get away with it, right?
Yeah.
The guy at the port of, I don't even know, wherever, Egypt, or I don't know, wherever they're taking them, right? But I mean, so this does happen in Japan too, but it's not the Japanese people stealing the cars.
Right.
It's the people coming there because they know the value of some of these cars. Even let's just say an S15, there's value there, right? Those are selling between, for a spec R, between $30,000 and $45,000.
Yeah.
That's
$100
money
car.
when all you got to do is just hot
Jimmy
wire
the
it.
little lock.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but I mean, I've seen another story recently. It was a white R34, I believe, that was stolen in Japan, and they caught it at port right before it was to be loaded on.
Really?
Yeah. So I feel like they do a decent job of, checking the car. I feel like there's a lot caught at port. You know what I mean? I feel like they might be a little more thorough.
On the exporting side in Japan.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, I guess if you got it in a container or whatever the case may be, like, are they cracking open every container?
Well, right, exactly. And then also, so what are, some of these instances, they could be removing a lot of parts from the car and putting it in a separate container. Like, there's all kinds of methods over the years, right? That's how, I had a 99 Civic Type R in 2008. You know what I mean? Like, how'd that get here?
Right.
I don't know. So that's one of those things, right? But so what sparked us for this episode was a recent post. It made its rounds. Some of you guys hopefully have seen it and keeping your eye out. Yeah. But I'll kind of read the post. And so this is about a white 99 Skyline GTT, which was up-badged to a GTR.
Oh.
Yeah. And so did this come back to bite you? You were importing an up-badged GTT.
Do you think someone thought they were getting a GTR?
GTR? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, I think so. I think somebody thought that they were getting something
they got swindled.
150 when they got something that was worth 38 or 50 or whatever, right? So here it is. It had 131,000 miles. It was stolen from the port of Tacoma, the EB1 terminal in Washington State, by a group of thieves who also stole a Porsche, a Toyota Chaser, and one other unnamed vehicle. Yeah. And so it was stolen from a company called Rare Garage Auto, and pretty much they're asking for help that if you see the car or any of its parts, give them a text or hit them up on IG. And so, again, it was a 99 34 GTT with AVS Model 5s. It had the whole 34 front bumper, side skirts, wing, a Nismo intercooler, like, some decent little parts, nothing super crazy.
Yeah, I know the Chaser, they did post that. It was a red one, and it was pretty sick and kind of unique. So I don't understand. Like, they're kind of stealing unique-ish examples of cars that are easy to spot, I guess you could say.
And I'm wondering if this is, like, all from Rare Garage Auto. Like, I wonder if all of them were owned by them.
Right.
Because they seem to be putting it out there about all of the cars. Yeah. If they're all owned by them, either those were the only cars that came into port.
They were cool.
Or there's some more connection here. There's more connection. Like, I'm no sleuth or whatever it's called, but, to me, if somebody steals that amount of your cars, then you probably have something going on internally. Maybe you need to figure out.
And I wonder how it happened. Like, how
can they get them out? You know, like, because as you know, ports are pretty strict, and with this happening, the port is going to investigate and it's going to get more strict. Yeah. And it'll come out pretty quickly whether this was due to being involved with people that maybe they shouldn't have been. But, like, how do you think they steal a car from port?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Like how do they steal
you gotta
a
have
car
fake
from port?
Credential, or it was someone that works at the port that has it in, or something.
Open the gate for their buddy.
Yeah, that's weird because that's usually a pretty secured area. Like,
there's for sure cameras.
Yeah,
like,
that too.
They can't. There's for sure video surveillance.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, if you think about it, at the port of New York, right?
Yeah.
Dude, they're leaving the keys inside of all these.
I know
the keys
kind of crazy.
Are in there, right? So our situation, okay, when we go to port, there's this big gate, and he keeps it closed though.
Yeah.
And then there's like a man door type fence gate. So you have to go in there. You got to talk to the security guy. Then you got to go in and get your paperwork, and then you can go get the car, and somebody walks you to the car.
Yeah.
So, and then you come back, and you have to wait at the gate, and then he opens it for you. Huh. So how did they get that open?
Yeah.
Like, Yeah, I would love to see that video surveillance, but
yeah, I would love to know how that happened too. I mean, it's got to be someone
involved.
Yeah.
Some way. So there's no way that 4 guys just went in there and just like drove these cars through the fence, Fast and the Furious style, jumped 67 feet. You know what I mean? No,
jumped the bridge.
Yeah, that's not how it works. You know, so I'd be interested to hear that. And if you do, you know, see any of these parts, for sure, hit up, you know, this garage. But how can so to wrap this up, kind of, right? How can these things be avoided? Like, how can you deter someone from this? From stealing your car? How do you eliminate that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the easiest way, obviously, is to park in a safe spot, you know, but that's not always possible. And
well, I think you have a quick example of that, right? Like, maybe this doesn't have to do with a JDM car, but this has to do with, you know, maybe this is something that you know, and I would be a victim of this also, is overconfidence in your situation, right?
Yeah.
Being overconfident in the fact that you're only, you know, you're parking here and you're only going 10 or 15 feet away, right?
Yeah, I mean, and when I lived in Nashville, I took my G35 to this taco truck at this market down the street, mile from my house. Okay, I get out of the car, turn the car off, I leave the keys in it. Car's not running though. So I'm literally 10 feet away. I'm parked right next to this taco truck. I make my order, step down, I'm looking at my phone. I hear my car back up, peel off. I'm like, what? Like, what just happened? So, I mean, yeah, my car got stolen because obviously I left the keys in the ignition, but, you know, I was just 10 feet away, a mile away from my house. Like,
right, you
I'm
that
safe,
overconfidence.
Right?
Yeah.
Overconfidence. Could have easily been avoided by having my keys.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, you just got to...
You can't get too comfortable,
You can't get too comfortable. You can't get too lax. You know, you got to think your car is going to get stolen everywhere you're going. And you got to use these things every single time, because the first time you don't might be the time that it gets stolen. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the first thing is obviously being smart, parking where you can be safe. If you don't have a garage, then obviously like know where you're parking on the street and be smart and take the moves to
take your keys, lock your doors, like. You know, even just locking the doors, you know, it's like, duh, Bobby, you lock the doors. Yeah. But, like, that's one more layer of delay for them stealing your car. You know, like, oh, I'm just running into 7-Eleven. Yeah. Well, dude, you just running into 7-Eleven could be the last time you drove that car.
Yeah.
But locking your doors means they either got to jimmy that or break the window, and that brings attention to them, which they don't like.
Yeah, exactly. Beyond that, you know, having a car alarm can go a long way. Dude, I mean, yeah, they can be annoying when they're going off and they're not yours, but it could easily save you. I mean,
it's annoying for a reason, because it gets attention.
Exactly.
Right? Because think about it. Anytime you hear that, you immediately look at that car. Yeah. You really do, because you're like, oh, who's the dink that set off this in their Subaru Outback?
Right.
You know, you're just like, who is this guy? But if that was, let's just say, a R32 GTSD just blaring, and you're like, oh, that's a nice car. Oh,
what the hell's going on?
What's that guy doing? You know, why is he trying to get into that car? Yeah. Now that attention was annoying, but it brought attention to him, and now he's probably bolting.
Right. And also another thing, when doing a car alarm, if you're not having it installed by a professional, like if you're doing it yourself, be sure that you're tucking the wires and kind of hiding the install of it so they don't just pop the hood, cut the power wire to the battery. Right. Or you know what I mean? It's not an easy disconnect.
Right. Yeah. So you gotta they don't find that loose wire that they can just cut and it disables it.
Yeah. Right. So, and that moves me on to my other one, kill switches. Very easy thing, and they can be redundant.
Simple.
Yeah. They can be redundant too. Dude, put one behind your seat, up under, put one under your dash, put one under the passenger seat that you had to flip all three if you have to. Yeah. I mean, whatever, and have them control.
Dudes have definitely done that plenty. Yeah. Like you see, especially like, not to shit on the Honda boys, but again, like on Honda Tech back in the day, that's what you would see, right? You would see 2 to 3 kill switches in random places, and it's going to disable the car to the point that by the time they find the 2 out of the 3, they feel so much anxiety because it's taking them so long, you know?
Right. And like what you're doing when you're doing that is you're slowing them down. That's like giving you more of a chance to catch them, or giving them more of a chance to think they're going to get caught and get out of there, which is fine. You know, you want it to take them as long as possible
to take your car. And so to touch on that, you know, like guys will be like, oh, kill switch, oh, that's so, you know, whatever, early 2000s, you know, but like some of these simple things, you know, really do work. Right. They really do. Same with like a steering wheel lock, sounds lame, right?
Yeah,
like the club, it sounds lame, but again, you're trying to slow them down, and that's going to slow them down because now they have to break or disable that in order to reach their goal, which is taking off with your car.
Exactly. And also to speak on that, quick release steering wheels, also a pretty...
Put it in your backpack, take it inside with you.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I believe NRG even makes locks, like a lockout that, you know, has a key and everything on itself. So if you don't have a steering wheel, it will be very hard. But however, you know, it doesn't stop, like in your buddy's situation, flatbed coming and picking it up. So
I mean, in that, that's not the way that, you know, I'd assume at least 85% of the people stealing cars are not stealing them with a flatbed. They're stealing them with the methods we're talking about, you know? So,
but, you know, with the flatbed, you got to have a way to track your car, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and that's 2024.
2024, dude. Yeah. You can get GPS trackers for fairly cheap without any kind of subscription or anything like that.
Yeah, you
can also get remote kill switches that will kill the car, but like obviously if it's getting towed off,
that doesn't help, matter. But the GPS
would. But the tracker, And another thing, install goes a long way on something like that because the thief is smart. They're going to be looking for it. Something like that because that's a very common thing, especially in newer cars.
Yeah, and so they make GPS trackers that are like stickers, and they're almost as thin as a sticker, and everything is in that little bit in the sticker. And so take off your door panel, put it on the inside of the door panel, put it somewhere where this guy has to dig. He has to really dig, which takes him more time, which gives you more time, right? This S14 back here, when I got it, you know, the driver's side window had a little, the switch was broken, that auto switch, remember? And so we're replacing it, and I take off the door panel, and out falls an AirTag. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I realized, like, oh, okay, this AirTag was, you know, this guy, the previous owner's attempt at least trying to make sure that he might be able to track it in case somebody stole it. And, you know, I don't necessarily recommend AirTags simply because of the proximity that you need to be in order to actually track it.
Don't they kind of warn you if you're being followed by an AirTag? Like if you're a thief, you have an iPhone, and you just got this car loaded with AirTags, you're going to get alerts that you're being followed by AirTags, right?
Yeah, and then that's going to tip you off.
Didn't that happen with Jesse?
Our buddy Jesse, somebody threw an AirTag on his 34 GTR in Japan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they actually followed him, but he brought it over to Space Auto to change the oil or something like that, and it was on his exhaust heat shield with a magnet, and he found it and was like, dude, what the hell? Like, why would they even want to track me? Like, so... I mean, there are definitely some ways that you can protect yourself. I mean, plenty of ways we didn't even necessarily mention, right?
I mean, dude, you can buy a boot for your own car.
That's what I was going to say when you were talking about the flatbed. I'm like, you
put
can
one
buy
on
a boot.
all four wheels.
You can. Like, you know, depending on where you live and how worried you are. Yeah. I mean, you can't be too safe when, let's just say you bought a 34 GTR, right? You paid $120 plus for it.
Yeah.
I don't see how you could be too safe.
Right.
Like, put
park
the
next
GPS
to a light pole, chain it to the tow hook, dude.
Yeah, literally, yeah, get the
put a leash on that thing.
Yeah, put a leash on it. Yeah,
anything,
I mean,
dude, keep your baby safe.
Yeah, don't be embarrassed because you're the one doing these things, like, because you're not going to be embarrassed when the car's not stolen. Right. You know, I mean, but we care so much about these cars, and unfortunately, they are from the 90s, right? Yeah. And security wasn't up to par. You know, right. there weren't some of these, you know, different, even or subscription, not prescription, subscription things like OnStar that can, like you said, cut the vehicle, track the vehicle. You know, there wasn't that stuff. So, you know, we definitely wouldn't wish this on anyone, you know.
Absolutely not.
Because, again, just like our buddy Dave, that can cut you right down to the bone, and, like, that can be the end of it for you.
Dude, when I got my beater G35 stolen, it was... Dude. I was heartbroken.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like
you know what I mean?
You feel sick to your stomach.
It's just the worst feeling ever.
Yeah, because it's like a violation that like doesn't really happen all the time, right? Yeah. And so when it does, it can definitely break you up. But yeah, I mean, if we miss something that's super pertinent that you could use as a theft deterrent, please hit us in the DMs. You know, let us know so that we can just add this to our list, and you know, anyone else who talks to us about it, we can throw that at them. But we wish the guys over here at the garage where the cars get stolen,
Rear Garage.
Rear Garage, we're hoping that they're able to recover these in good shape. Unfortunately, in this type of thing, every day is another day that, you know, these thieves have the opportunity to kind of part this out, cut it up, and it's gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Hate it.
But for the big episode 80, we appreciate you listening along with us as always. Make sure to share the podcast with your mother, your brother, your buddies, whatever it is. We'd love to have them.
Oh, yeah.
Follow us on the socials. Hit us in the DM with any questions, suggestions, whatever you got at RHDGUIS. And we'll see you for episode 81 next week. I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
See ya.
Peace.